is the time to call in using the instructions on your screen. And please press *9 to raise your hand. When it is your time to speak, you will hear an announcement that you have been unmuted. For those who have been approved for extra time, there's just 4 groups. I'll have you speak, and then I'll go out to general public comment. And again, the timer will be set to 1 minute for general public comment. So first up, under approved extra time for groups is Seabright Strong, and I believe that is Tom Brown. I see you're unmuted there, Tom. So go ahead, and we'll set the timer for 2 minutes.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, City Council. I think the draft is a really good start to a very difficult and intransigent problem, but I think it is the right approach. I do, though, have a few comments. I had 3 comments in particular. Lee Butler addressed one of them with respect to section 6.36.050D, which was the permitted camping section, and excluding camping in residential areas there or schools solves one of the really big problems that was in the draft ordinance. And so with that amendment, I think Seabright Strong would be quite supportive of the amendment of the ordinance. The other place where I think we have an issue is in 6.36.050C. D basically says permitted camping is, city-owned or city-sponsored camping on city-owned property is what it addresses. C addresses private entities having camping in residential areas. And right now it does not preclude such camping in private areas. I believe that's a gaping hole in the protections that the neighborhoods were looking for from encampments and safe sleeping areas. And so we'd strongly suggest that C have the same addition that Mr. Butler proposed for D. Okay, so that's the 2 comments to the permitted camping areas. We also have 1 comment on the prohibited areas, which is 6.36.040, and our is to A2. And what that section says right now is that camping is not permitted adjacent to residential neighborhoods, but it conspicuously leaves out the words in residential neighborhoods. Having maybe been jaded by lots of litigation in my lifetime, I would stress if what we mean is that we won't permit camping in neighborhoods or adjacent to neighborhoods, we say the words in or adjacent to neighborhoods. And that concludes our comments.
Thank you. Next up is the Santa Cruz Business Council. And that's, I believe, phone number ending in, let me look here. Sorry, I've got too many notes tonight. Where did that phone number go? Let's see, I know it's 707 area code. Just find that.
Mayor,
there's only one. It ends in 4. Yeah,
I see it on there.
And yeah, phone number ending in 4546. This is for Santa Cruz Business Council. You'll have 2 minutes.
Hello, good evening, Santa Cruz City Council members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thanks for hearing from me tonight. My name is Robert Singleton. I'm the former executive director of the Santa Cruz County Business Council, but this was a pretty important issue, so I wanted to go ahead and say a couple words about it. So before I talk about why I support this ordinance, I want to give a little context for folks, especially folks out in the public. This is a major issue that's not the city of Santa Cruz or Santa Cruz County. Recently, I've been traveling and speaking with a lot of city councils all over the Pacific Northwest and Western United States. This is a major issue that every single jurisdiction, big or small, is facing. So we absolutely need a unified, concerted, and state and national efforts if we are to really make a dent, a major problem. I support the TOLO ordinance as stated here. I want to talk a little bit about what this ordinance does right. So this ordinance does provide more housing options for unsheltered folks than what we had previously had. I know there's been a lot of back and forth about where managed encampment, but the fact that the city has gone and listened to neighborhoods, gone and talked to a lot of people and identified these clear sites is a big step in the right direction. This ordinance provides a daytime storage program, which is extremely needed. When you actually talk with folks experiencing homelessness on the ground level about the things that they most need, it's a place to store their belongings so they won't be stolen or impounded by the city. So I applaud the city for going forward and moving forward by developing a program for this program collects better data. By going out and actually talking to people who are going to be in these managed campsites, we will hopefully provide greater insight into what we're doing right and what we can do better. Having that quarterly census is going to help us better refine our services and better tailor them to the needs of the people's experience on the ground. So I support this ordinance to get the step in the right direction, and I appreciate the council have come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Stepping Up Santa Cruz, and I see Serge is on the line.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Serge.
Good evening. My name's Serge Cagno of Stepping Up Santa Cruz. In a time when bring focus to marginalized populations, bring focus to the systemic barriers against achieving equity and success, this ordinance continues the marginalization of those with mental health challenges, suffering from trauma, and those suffering from poverty. Trauma-informed care is a required practice for nonprofits in contract with the county and those funded with state and federal dollars through the Homeless Action Partnership. Trauma-informed care is the idea that people suffer trauma through their services offered should have sensitivity and flexibility, should be intrinsic in their design. They should not perpetuate trauma. Not all people who are homeless are criminals. They're living in poverty, have medical, mental health, domestic violence, and trauma issues. They have high numbers of adverse childhood experiences known as ACE scores. They often grew up in poverty from unhealthy home lives and very often from foster care. They deserve being treated with dignity and sensitivity to support healing. Trauma-informed care is a best practice because it's more effective and cheaper. Hiring people in the middle of the night to go to an available location without a requirement of providing transportation is setting them up for failure. This ordinance does not take into account our responsibility for our role in why people who are unhoused will not make use of our shelters and our programs. Many people are banned from ever returning to our shelters. This ordinance does not take into account our minimal level of support and lack of offer of management for encampments. There are innovative programs in other cities doing outreach and incentivizing picking up trash around one's campsite and for signing up for benefits and services. Any population camping without management will get out of control, whether that's people with $300,000 RVs at a state park or people who are unhoused. This camping ban makes it more difficult for nonprofits and county services to engage, build trust, and to offer services. I applaud creating safe sleep locations and a storage program, yet we all know there's space for everyone. Then why is this ordinance making being homeless illegal? Criminalize crime. Don't criminalize being poor and homeless. Please note, no work group, the city work group has ever endorsed the camping ban. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Westside Cares, and I do not have a phone number, but if the Westside Cares person somehow indicate who they are. Bonnie, I'm not quite sure how to do this.
Well, the only thing I can think of is if I lower everybody's hand and you have them in your hand.
Let's do that. So the Westside Cares person, we're going to lower everyone's hand and then we'll have you raise. Okay. Just the Westside Cares person that asked for extra time. Sabina, are you the Westside Cares person? Okay, go ahead.
Hello, I'm calling on behalf of Westside Cares Neighborhood Group in opposition to the new camping services and standards ordinance, which will criminalize the existence of unhoused people using methods that have long proven to be expensive, ineffective, and harmful. Camping bans elsewhere have been marketed as a way to create services while enforcing with a light touch. However, research shows that when these types of laws are passed, the increase in services tends not to materialize, but fines, citations, and arrests increase. Then, when shelters continue to be overburdened and affordable housing not available, people are forced to break the law by either sheltering in public and risking harassment from the police or finding more isolated and hidden locations to avoid moving camp daily. This worsens public health by dispersing people and their belongings to more remote areas of the city with nowhere to discard trash or bodily waste. Much research demonstrates that camping bans do not inspire people to leave town. Instead, they travel longer distances every night in search of shelter and move more frequently between neighborhoods. The nature of having to pick up and move every single day is a well-documented destabilizing force in people's lives. Police report on homelessness, Andy Mills acknowledges that, quote, resources to help people just aren't there. Until we fix that, we're going to continue to move them from place to place or incarcerate them, which doesn't seem to be a good solution in anybody's book, end quote. It is widely acknowledged by experts that redirecting funds towards productive and preventative solutions is one of the most cost-effective weapons we have against homelessness. This means providing people with meaningful support, not proposing bare minimum services in order to justify criminalization. An example of what we would like to see more of is the Harvey West Agreement camp. By choosing to close it rather than support it, is clear your only intention is to sweep the unhoused under the rug rather than lift our neighbors out of homelessness. We believe we are capable of employing creativity, compassion, and critical thinking to lift people out of homelessness instead of punishing them. Instead of well-researched policy, this ordinance was built from fear and animosity towards people who are unhoused. It ignores experts' evidence and the city's own point-in-time count. If enacted, we can expect to see increased police budgets, and human waste, but most importantly, human suffering. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes our available extra time, folks. And now I will go ahead and take people who have their hands raised just in the order that I see them. You'll get 1 minute, and the first person is Joy. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Joy Schendeldecker from Sanitation for the People. This new ordinance continues to criminalize houselessness while offering the most paltry and vague remedies. It is misleading. People living outside are not camping. They are living and often working without housing. It's allowing people experiencing homelessness from seeking shelter in parks and open spaces, day or night, effectively privatizes public land from them. If essentially all land is private or privatized, where can people go? Day and night storage are important programs that should be put in place, but they do not replace the need for a resident to establish a home for themselves or to have the tools in their workplace, often their tent or vehicle. It doesn't add up. Where will the several hundred people not served by safe camping find sanitation and waste management? How will you ever be able to enforce this ordinance when you have so few spaces? 150 safe sleeping spots is woefully inadequate. Sanitation and waste management are still not adequately addressed and too vague. Stop criminalizing houselessness.
Next up is Ann S. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. This is Ann Simonton, and I want to thank Surge for their comments. I agree completely and wholeheartedly with their comments. It's very important for the City Council to hear their comments. The major goal of this city is to eliminate large encampments. Why are you creating the bench lands, which is will be like the Ross camp, again? And we need managed camps. I don't know how you can hear this, but what we need is managed places for people who are working and living outside, like the woman just said, and that we need to create something like friendship or agreement camp. This is incredibly important. The city spent $4 million with little or nothing for us to see as what have we done? What has been accomplished? Moving them around and sticking them someplace else. It's very disturbing. It's disturbing that you can't come up with a policy that will allow faith-based groups and nonprofits to create trauma-informed care. Thank you so much for your work. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate listening.
Thank you. Next up is caller with the phone number ending in 8443.
This is Altera Hatton. Thank you for taking my comment today. I'm here today, as I've been many times, because I'm deeply concerned about your proposed ordinance, Agenda Item 21, to house our unsheltered population. You are again proposing ways to penalize their behavior. You are targeting behaviors which are inescapable acts of daily life, and you are creating a criminal class where there are simply survivors. Why has Santa Cruz refused state funding to provide vulnerable, helpless population in hotel rooms during this pandemic? You put our whole city at risk, not to mention denying our houseless population the transition to permanent housing, which has helped so many others pandemic across California. Why do you repeatedly introduce ordinances which violate Martin versus Boise? It's very nice sounding for you that the city and county have an agreement which places the responsibility for care, outreach, and housing with the county. But please understand that Santa Cruz is no longer a small town. We have a $104 million city expense budget, and a great many of us do not see the city as simply a neutral mediator between the houseless and county programs. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next up is Bob. You press *6. There you go. You're unmuted. Go ahead, please.
Hi. Yeah, I want to comment on two kind of aspects of this. One is just that the city's approach to this ordinance has really fomented a lot of the wrong attitudes towards this problem by going forth with criminalization and trying to hide this deep structural issue in our society. We're teaching our children to dehumanize the people that are negatively impacted and are houseless. And second, as somebody who has survived, whose family has survived a wildfire, barely, the groups that have sprung up in support of the, especially adopting, name of locality strong, it's been a gross misappropriation of that sentiment of community strength and sticking together and looking out for one another. And we should be leading with compassion.
Thank you. Next up is phone number 4931.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, I'm calling as a registered nurse and Lower Ocean neighbor. I work in oncology. I give chemotherapy to people. From regularity, I give chemo to people who are unhoused, maybe living in a car, maybe with a friend, occasionally camping outside. So we do our best to get people the housing that they deserve. Many don't want to use available shelter options. Most often this is because they don't want to be separated from a partner or a pet, but whatever reason it is, it's a valid reason. So I wonder, when you pass this version of TOLO, and we all know in our hearts that you're going to pass it, even though we're desperate that our calls to empathy, evidence, and humanity will reach you, when you pass this new ordinance, I hope you think of my patients and the horrific impact that you and your ordinance will have on what little stability they may have in their lives when they have to pick up and move their stuff every day or else risk arrest, or be forced into shelter that likely won't ever materialize, but certainly is unlikely to provide anything they actually need. Maybe instead I can send them to Renee Golder's house. No money in the budget says it's all in the police budget. If you put people in houses, you won't have to pay the police to harass them. You won't have to be so grossly inconvenienced by having to look at poverty as you drive around town.
Thank you. Next up is Sarah. *6, you can unmute. Sarah, if you're available, if you press *6, you should be able to unmute and then you can speak. Okay, I'm going to move to Edward Estrada and have Edward go, and we'll see if we can get Sarah to be able to unmute. Go ahead, please, Edward.
Okay. Hi, this is Edward Estrada, president of the College Democrats at UCSC. I want to highlight the qualifying disability section of this ordinance. My mother is disabled with an invisible disability, severe chronic pain. Proving disability, even to physicians as a woman of color, is difficult, and many physicians have not believed her. I highly advise you to change the requirement that invisible disabilities require physician notes. Due to her disability, for many years, we lived off of $500 a month and lost our home. If it wasn't for family support, we would have been one of the many unhoused people surviving on our streets. These people are just trying to live, and criminalizing their survival is not a long-term solution for them, our communities. I stand with the ACLU of Northern California in opposing this criminalization of homelessness, and I urge you to look into further solutions to build more affordable housing in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, we'll try you again. If you press *6, that's correct, right, Bonnie? *6 is unmute, is what folks can unmute with. Okay. Sarah, you're up. You have to press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, we're going to move to the next caller, which ends in phone number 79. Oh, wait, Sarah, there you are. You're unmuted. Go ahead, please.
No, I don't see it.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, there we go. Go ahead, Sarah. Sarah, we can't hear you. Sarah, I'll come back to you. I'm going to catch the next two callers. Next caller will be phone number ending in 7.
Hi, my name's Deborah, and I wanted to make a comment. The statistic I heard was that we have 1,200 unhoused people, so proposing 150 safe sleeping spots is obviously inadequate, and we really need to do more. I think at the county level, we need to change the building ordinance to make it easy to build tiny homes, identify county land, build and manage tiny home villages, managed encampments, follow the models that have been working in other places like Washington, Oregon, Oakland, Santa Barbara. We can do this if we have the political will and the moral courage. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, it looks like you're unmuted, so you can go ahead. Sarah, are you using your iPad or other streaming device, or are you on your phone? You need to be on your phone. And then you should mute your television or streaming device if you are calling in using like an iPad or something like that. Because we won't be able to hear you if you don't mute those. Bonnie, I'm not quite sure how we help her, but I'll move on to the next caller. The next call in person is user /_2. Not sure. And please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Garrett, and I also oppose the criminalization of homelessness. As a retired teacher, I think of that bumper sticker that says, "It'll be a great day when the schools have all the money they need, and the Air Force has to have a bake sale." That applies also for all social services, housing, parks. If we could take the approximately 50% of the money that goes to the military, what we could do with it. I also think of experience I had in 1966 to visit the former Soviet Union, and my second cousin there, they paid about 5% of their income for housing in a little apartment near a park. We have a structural problem here. It's called capitalism, and we need something better that provides for everyone. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll try Sarah again. Looks like you're unmuted. Sarah, we still can't hear you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next caller, which is 3123, ending in 4 numbers of 3123.
Hi, this is Mark Kelsey. I'm a resident of the area and wanted to echo my Tom Brown's support for and thanks for the work that Lee Butler and the Planning Department have done to revise the ordinance and offer an improved new ordinance regarding camping. And I fully support the council adopting this ordinance with the amendments Lee proposed and those also that Tom Brown suggested. So I think it's very much a step forward and will be very helpful to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other attendees tonight wishing to speak? I am not seeing any. Oh, there's a hand. A couple other hands. I have a caller with the name Skirt.
Hi, council members. This is Skirt Vonnegut, formerly the Santa Cruz Derby Girls, and I just wanted to call in and thank Councilmember Brown for her questions. Thank Lee Butler for explanation of the app, the interface. I'm still just sad to think that some council members will probably likely want to move forward with this measure, without a clear understanding of, I still understand how the city will avoid criminalizing the 1,050 people who will not be served by the, safe sleeping sites. And I'm just really sad at thinking about walking to work every morning and, passing by people lugging their belongings behind them, all their things. And that I walk to work every morning downtown Santa Cruz. I'm just really sad thinking about having to, witness that, and just wishing my neighbors well.
Thank you. Next up is phone number ending in 6798, please. You should be able to speak. We can't hear you. Have you pressed *6 to unmute yourself? There you go. Press *6 to unmute, and then you should be able to go. There you go. We still can't hear you. If you have your TV on, you should be muting it, or your streaming device. You should be able to speak. You're unmuted on our end, but we're not hearing you. Okay, it looks like you're unmuted, but for some reason we're not hearing you. Bonnie, do you have any suggestions?
No, except they can email the council with their comments that they would make, and it would be submitted as part of the public record.
Part of the record. Okay. I'm sorry, phone number ending in 6798. We can't hear you even though you're unmuted. So please go ahead and email the council. And with that, it looks like we've concluded those members of the public. I'll bring it back to